Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of College Hockey Talk. On today's podcast, I'm joined by Zachary Borgiel from the Merrimack men's hockey team. Zachary is a goalie, and he just finished a pretty good season for Merrimack as he led the Warriors to their first NCAA tournament appearance since 2011 and to a Hockey East final as well. Zach, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today, and how's everything going?
Everything's going good. Thanks for having me.
Well, I want to sort of start off talking about this past season. Obviously, it was a pretty special year, even though it didn't end the way you guys wanted it to. How have you sort of reflected on this past year since it's been almost 2 weeks since it last ended?
Yeah. Obviously it was a difficult ending this season. Not one that we envisioned. But yeah, like it was a lot happened this year. A lot of ups and downs. And I'm just really happy that we were able to do it with such a good group this year.
Yeah, I sort of want to talk about that adversity because you guys started off the season, unfortunately losing your assistant coach, Josh Sioko. I want to know how you guys found out about that news and how you guys sort of went through that throughout this season because obviously you guys, it must be such a challenge losing such a good coach and friend, but also how are you trying to honor his legacy throughout the regular season? Because I know that's what your coach Borak wanted you guys to do throughout this season as well.
Yeah. No, obviously Josh was a tremendous person, and great coach as well. He's a reason why a lot of the guys on the team are here. He recruited a lot of us. So yeah, losing him, I think it was 3 or 4 days before our first game of the season, actually this year. That was really hard for us. But kind of like what Coach Bork said throughout the end of the year there when he was getting interviewed a couple times, kind of brought us closer together. A lot of times, especially in our situation, we had a lot of transfers coming in. Sometimes it can be hard to get gelled and incorporated as a locker room. But I think that helped us. Obviously, terrible circumstances, but I think that helped pull us together faster than we may have needed to, or ordinarily would have. But I think it in the long run, I think it really did help our team gel and come together.
Yeah, I was listening to an interview with your coach, and he was saying how he didn't want to even play that first weekend of the series, but you guys as a team decided to do that. Does that show sort of the team chemistry that you guys built even before the year began?
Yeah, I think so. I think it also talks about tests our competitive nature too as a team. I think our team wanted to win more than any team I've ever been a part of this year. Just even in practice, battling. We're all very competitive, and I think that's what we wanted. What we want to do. What we thought Josh wanted us to do, and we just wanted to make sure that our coaching staff was on board with that goal too.
Now, I want to sort of dive into the culture at Merrimack because I think it's one of the best cultures in all of Hockey East and maybe in all of college hockey. And it started off this year because I was hearing a story about how you guys brought some Navy SEALs called the Project before the season began. You guys did some exercises with them, getting up at 4:30 in the morning and trying to do water exercises, and how it was very good for team bonding. Talk a little bit about what it was like doing that and sort of how the team started to get come together and how you guys built that culture throughout the season.
Yeah. No, yeah, the program, I think they came out the first week of September, I want to say, for I think it was just a 2 day training exercise type of thing. And I thought it was excellent. It wasn't as much as like you hear Navy SEAL, oh, it's gonna be scary, like they're gonna work you, but it was more mental training than anything. Just kind of putting us under different circumstances, under pressure, and having to make quick decisions under that. So I think that obviously helped translate our game. And like throughout the whole year, we had a lot of big time goals, big time plays, and big time moments. And I think some of that training definitely translated into that.
I was hearing a story about how Hugo Olaf, since he's so tall, it was hard for him to do one of the water exercises, trying to take the coat off somebody and put it back on himself. I think that was one of the drills, if I'm remembering it correctly.
Yeah, we had a water treading exercise, and you had to change sweatshirts with like a
That's what it
person
was. Yeah.
treading water, yeah, next to you in the pool. I know, I think he was pretty fine, but I don't think anybody wanted to wear his triple XL sweatshirt. So
Yeah.
I think that's where the problem was running into a little bit.
Now, you guys were pretty consistent throughout most of the year. I think a lot of people didn't really expect you guys to be ranked, let alone have the season you guys did. So, what was sort of the mindset heading into each game, and how did you guys maintain that consistency? And then as the season went along, sort of having that target on your back of being a ranked team.
Yeah. I mean, I think our preseason rank was eighth or ninth in Hockey East. Um, Obviously, we finished second, so we proved a lot of people wrong. And I think that's kind of the mindset we had coming into this year was take that underdog mindset on, kind of just prove people wrong. And then we obviously we were consistent throughout pretty much the whole first half. And I think the Christmas break just came at a bad time for us. Like I think we had 10 or 12 in a row there. We were really hot. So coming out of break, we struggled a bit for I think it was a month long stretch. And I think that's like what you said. It was we kind of had to deal with being not the underdog at that
Yeah.
point because we were ranked so high. We just different mindset going into games and stuff like that. And then luckily we had another off weekend in there. And during that off weekend, I think we just went back to being the underdogs again, and just kind of playing with like this is house money. Nobody's predicting us to do this, so let's just go out there and do it.
Yeah, I think it really switched with that weekend against Boston University when you guys got that sweep because at the time I think BU was like fourth or fifth in the country. I'm assuming what was your mindset heading into that weekend and talk about getting that split and how it sort of helped you guys energize you to go on that run into the Hockey East tournament.
Yeah, that weekend was huge against BU coming out of the break there. And I think like what I said earlier, like we were underdogs. Like BU was so highly ranked, everybody was predicting them to win, and we just kind of went out and said, let's play hockey. We'll give you our best. You give us our best. And yeah, so after that weekend, it pretty much showed that we could play with anybody. And we continued that throughout the rest of the year. Like I think we finished the year 9-2 or something like that. So yeah, it just kind of catapulted us, reminded us how good of a team we actually are, and we used that for the rest of the season, leading in playoffs, and then the one game in the tournament there.
Now, you guys got a lot of new players into your team this past year. Obviously, a lot of grad transfers with Ryan Liebold from Holy Cross, Will Calvary from RIT, and Otto Lepinen from RPI. And you guys also had a lot of young defensemen as well. I know there wasn't a lot of transition regarding the goaltending position, but how do you try to learn to communicate with those new players once they step on campus?
Yeah, I think I mean the last couple of years we've had multiple grad transfers come in. It's a little easier though with the older guys. Like they've been around, they know how college hockey works. So I think it's a little easier transition for them. But no, all of our freshmen. I mean, we had Bookman, freshman D. I think he played every single game this year, and he played big minutes. And other than outside of Slava Demin, I don't know if we had another upper class defenseman on our roster. So we were definitely young on the back end. But with that being said, this year coming in, all those guys are going to be back. So it'll just be another year to work, kind of get used to each other, just little things like that.
Yeah. No, because I know the communication between the goaltenders and the defensemen is huge because I see it all the time, the ice. And I always wonder how they sort of build that chemistry throughout the season, especially with young players that might not be used to sort of how the systems are at Merrimack.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We just a lot of video. Dan Jewell, he's the video and defense coach, so that makes it a little easier with just wording and certain play calls and stuff like that. A little bit easier transition, but yeah, just I think it's just a day by day process that over time you just become more and more comfortable.
And obviously, like I mentioned before, the culture at Merrimack is sort of one of the reasons, I think one of the more underrated reasons why you guys had so much success this year. And I want to ask you about a story that I heard. It was at BC, and I guess it was a very tight and stressful game. And I guess Tristan Crozer, one of your grad transfers, pretty much went to your coach and said, like, you're stressing us out. And like, we want to sort of like try to calm us down a little bit. And Coach Bork said he really appreciated that because he feels like there should be the players should also try to coach the coaches as well because they're not perfect and that communication needs to be there. And he sort of talks about that's the type of culture you wanted to build. He wants to bring in those guys that, might not be the most like highly touted players, but guys that can fit in the locker room and bring a nice energy to Merrimack hockey and sort of have that statement that he made, Mission Merrimack. So I sort of want to ask you about that story and just the culture that you guys have and sort of the players that you have on the team and sort of how you try to mesh together.
Yeah, no, yeah, yeah. Scott, he for sure is one of the like more emotional. I think he's got that reputation, one of the more emotional coaches in college hockey. You got to love it as a player, though. He shows that there's passion. He cares about us. But yeah, that story is funny. I remember. Yeah, we were losing. I think after 2 periods, we were losing to BC, and Borzi came in the locker room and he was a little upset, freaking out a little bit. We had some late penalties called on us, or just, I don't know. He was mad about something.
Yeah.
And yeah, Tristan, I don't even think at the time, I don't even know if he had played a shift yet. But yeah, Tristan, a great leader, super calm guy too. Just said, look, like you got to calm down. Like we're still in. Like I think it was only a 1 goal game, maybe 2 goal game. And he's like, we're still in this, coach. Like you can't lose your cool. Like just stay calm. We got this. And we've kind of had that attitude all year. Even when we were getting stressed, vice versa. Scott came back and said to us, "Hey, you guys got it. You guys are a good team. Like you guys know it. Just like he never lost faith. Nobody really ever lost faith in us, and I think that's why we succeeded at the end of the year there."
What's it like playing under Coach Bork? What's he like with the goaltenders? Because obviously, I feel like sometimes the goalies are a little bit separated from the rest of the coaching staff sometimes. But he always says that he's always very honest with his players, no matter what.
Yeah, yeah. No, I would definitely say he holds true to that. Yeah, he's pretty off key with the goalies. I mean, I'm not a huge believer in being butt buddies with my head coach. You know what I mean? You pretty much as a goalie, you just show up and stop the puck.
Yeah.
And if you're doing that, your head coach will be happy with you. So
Yeah. Well, one thing I found interesting about your team is you guys rotated between yourself and Hugo Olas, even during the playoffs, which is something that you usually don't see. Just talk about the relationship you have with Hugo and what was your thoughts on that rotation, playing one game, especially in a playoff situation, playing the semifinal game, then having Hugo play the championship game in Hockey East, and then having the fall week, you playing that semifinal game against Quinnipiac. And if you guys won that game, I was told that Hugo was going to start that semifinal regional final game.
yeah, no, yeah, pretty much. I think since day one of the season, I mean, even to the start of last season, we've pretty much rotated, pretty much game for game over the last 2 years. Our like Hugo's freshman year, my sophomore year last season, it was a little bit of adjustment for both of us. Like I was in that situation earlier in my career, like in youth AAA hockey and stuff like that. But he'd never been in a situation like splitting like that. So I think last year was like a little bit of an adjustment period in that sense. And then this year we just kind of knew that was going to be the plan going in the year. And then we just kind of looked at each weekend as a 1 game series for us individually. And knew if we did our job in that weekend, the other guy would do the same job the next night. So that's kind of just the way we looked at it. If you do your job the one night, the other guy will do the job the next night. So
Yeah. Do you ever talk in between commercial breaks with each other? Or do you guys sort of like to like let him do his own thing, I guess?
I guess it kind of depends on like what's going on. Um, I'm usually like a pretty like relaxed guy in between whistles. Hugo likes to talk to the like group, I guess, the team a little bit more. I kind of just stay at my end of the bench,
Mhm.
take a sip, but yeah, we'll always give each other. We got a little handshake that we do in between every timeout. So kind of just reset. If we need like if something needs to be said, we'll say something. But other than that, we just do our little handshake in between each intermission, and that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, I always love watching the goalies in between commercial breaks because you guys are sort of different than the rest of the team. My favorite is Devin Levi. I don't know if you've seen it, him doing like
Oh
the
yeah.
meditation in between commercial breaks. I don't know if you're ever going to do that though.
Yeah. I've never done anything quite like that. I'm sure we all like every goalie has their own little thing they do, whatever keeps their mind focused and keeps them mentally prepared. I usually just do like a little handshake with my trainer.
Yeah.
That's something I kind of picked up playing juniors. That's just like the one little thing I like to do.
Now, you obviously got the chance to play at the TD Garden this past year, and you guys won that game against UMass Lowell 2-1 in overtime. Talk about, first of all, what was it like playing at the TD Garden as a goalie and just what that experience was like for you? Because that's sort of It must be. I was behind the net for one of the games, and it was cool to see like all the lights and just the hub vision and all that stuff. Like, I feel like as a goal, you gotta take that in a little bit and just sort of embrace the atmosphere, especially since the Merrimack fans brought it in that semifinal game.
Oh yeah, yeah. That was. I mean, I've been to. I'm not a Boston guy, but I've been to definitely a couple of Bruins games since I've been out here at Merrimack, and some pretty important games. And I've never heard anything as loud as when we stepped on the ice there. Like it was a sea of yellow up in the third level. It was awesome to see, and you could definitely feel it through. Like just a lot of adrenaline pumping, and yeah, just the whole atmosphere of the whole weekend. Even Sunday, I didn't get to play, um, but just even sitting on the bench that game, like I think I took it in a little bit more when I wasn't playing because it's a little hard when you are. But just looking around and seeing like all the, I didn't even know we had that many Merrimack fans out here, so it was definitely awesome to see.
Oh, so loud, especially with I like how the two schools were going at it with Lowell and Merrimack, especially since you guys have that rivalry. What was that? How cool is it to sort of have that rivalry game at such a big arena like that?
Yeah, yeah, we played them 1 or 2 weekends before that. So we had a little familiarity and some bad blood boiling over a little bit. But yeah, the close proximity with the two schools, the rivalry's kind of faded over the last couple of years with COVID and other reasons. But I think this year and last year, them knocking us out of playoffs, I think it's kind of rejuvenated the rivalry a little bit. And obviously after that game, it'll only increase it. So
And I want to know what the team's mindset was after Lowell scored that late goal to tie up the game and bring it into overtime, because it felt like you guys were sort of, it seemed like it didn't phase your team at all. And eventually you found a way to win it in double overtime. And how do you sort of mentally handle those overtimes? Because it could end in a second, but it also sometimes drags on. And it's sort of like a mental battle with that aspect as well.
yeah, yeah, that's obviously anytime you give up a 6-on-5 goal in the last minute, it's going to be mentally deflating, especially in such a big game like that. But what I think what helped us a little bit was the weekend before, or that Wednesday before, we played Boston College, and we went into a double overtime game in that game, and ended up winning 1-0 final in that. So I think that kind of helped us just going in that game. We had a lot of overtime games throughout the regular season too. So I think we were just confident in our group that we knew that we could get it done if we just stick to it. And I don't think our mindset really changed much after they tied the game. Really, um, obviously we would have liked to get it done a little quicker than two double overtime games back to back there. But no, it was awesome. Like our leadership group was so great, and yeah, our team really didn't stumble at all. We just stuck to it, and came out in overtime with the same game plan we did the entire game before that. So
What was your going through your head when Capone finally scored?
I was pretty much. Thank you. um, I mean, he had a great game that night. He probably had 6 or 7 chances before that he could have scored.
Yeah.
He just wanted to extend the night a little bit, I guess.
You want to sell you in front of those fans too.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That was awesome. And I was kind of getting tripped a little bit about it. Um, I instead of like you said earlier, like how do you really soak it in? Previously, like I've kind of missed some opportunities, I guess, of
Yeah.
capturing the moment, I guess. So I didn't really do like the usual like skate over and jump in. I just kind of stood in my net, and, like in my crease, looked around, and just like soaked in the energy. And no, it was awesome. Like that place was going crazy, and I was just so happy. It was great.
Now, unfortunately, your season didn't end the way you guys wanted to, especially in that hockey's championship game, because you guys were one goal short of winning a championship. Talk a little bit about how you sort of processed the last two games of the season, because even though the score was 5-0 against Quinnipiac, I really didn't feel like it reflected that. But it's just two heartbreaking games to sort of end a great season that you guys had.
Yeah. Yeah, that championship game, that was tough, especially since the night like you said earlier, that game against Lowell the previous night went into double overtime. So I don't think we even left the rink till 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning. And then we had a quick turnaround the next night. I mean, no excuses, but I think we just looked a little tired. Maybe we weren't able to close as fast defensively. Maybe a little bit due to the lack of energy. But no, we battled extremely hard. They have a couple great players on that team. And yeah, that Lane Hudson just made a good move walking the blue line and kind of had a seeing eye shot that found its way home. And I don't think we really played bad at all. They played a great game, and just one of those classic championship back and forth games. So we were confident with our game after with our team play after that, and then going into the Quinnipiac game. I think they got off to a hot start there. We took a couple early penalties, which kind of put us behind the eight ball. We were scoreless after the first, which I think we thought as a team that was a positive for us because they did kind of come out hot. And then yeah, it wasn't really a 5-0 game in our eyes too. But both those teams, like they're obviously great hockey teams. They're both in the Final Four. But yeah, we think we can beat those teams any given night, and we'll look to beat them next year.
Yeah. Who do you think's gonna win the Frozen Four now? Since you've seen two of those teams, obviously.
I don't know. Maybe hopefully BU can win it. That'd look good for our league and Hockey East.
Yeah.
But I mean, every one of those teams is super talented and has crazy good players. So I think it's pretty much wide open.
Oh, I think it's gonna be a good final Frozen Four. I'm really excited, especially with all the talent that's on all four of those teams. I
Mm-hmm.
think I was reading somewhere where there's like 20 NHL draft picks on all four NHL teams or something like that. So that's gonna be fun to watch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's great for college hockey when you have all that skill on display.
Yeah, for sure. And I do want to ask you, is the atmosphere at the tournament game a little bit different than the Hockey East Championship one? Because I felt like it wasn't as in, I guess the atmosphere perspective, it wasn't as like noticeable in a tournament game versus the Hockey East final.
Yeah, I think it was. I think it's a little bit different in a couple aspects. Um, I think just what helped the TD Garden weekend is I think it was also St. Patrick's Day. So I
Yeah.
think that had a little bit of a effect on the crowd energy. But I think also like we knew that there was going to be games after the Hockey East tournament. Maybe the national game there was a little bit more nervous energy in the building. I would say
Yeah.
fans weren't going too crazy in that sense. But no, both buildings, both games were great atmospheres, and a pleasure to play in front of both venues.
Now, I do want to ask you about the beginning of your hockey career a little bit and your journey to college hockey. So, you're from Michigan. Talk about growing up there and how'd you start playing hockey, and specifically what made you want to be a goalie? Because I'm someone that doesn't like getting pucks thrown at me. It takes a little. I'm a forward, so I'm not really the best block shot. I'm more of just like a grindy third liner, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah. So my whole family, cousins, sisters, they all play. Um, but yeah, I started when I was skating when I was 1 or 2, just like most people. Just like learned to skate. And then I got into recreational hockey 7, 8 years old, something around there. And then I didn't actually change to be a goalie until 4 or 5 years into hockey, so like 10 or 11. And actually, the last season I did play player. It was funny. I would dress as goalie for the first 2 periods, and
Yeah,
then you know how there's a second, third intermission flood. Like there's just the one flood in youth hockey.
yeah,
In that intermission, I would if we were winning the game or losing the game, vice versa. If it was not a close game, I would put my player gear on for the third period, and then I would play as a player the whole third period. So I did that for a whole year, and then the following year was the first year we could like AAA hockey. You were allowed to do that. And then so I went to Honey Baked, and at tryouts they said no, you can't you can't do the half goalie half player thing again. So they said they'd take me as a goalie, and kind of had to make a decision. I kind of figured that I had a better calling goalie than player. But yeah, I chose goalie, and it kind of just stuck from there.
Who was your favorite goalie growing up? Was it Chris Osgood? I'm trying to think of all the Red Wings goalies. Jimmy
No,
Howard.
I was actually a huge Penguins fan.
Oh wow.
My favorite goalie is Marc Andre Fleury.
Yeah.
And he's been all the way since back in the day. when he broke in with the bright yellow pads. I've kind of just always loved him from that.
I love the video of him recently trying to fight Bennington, and then like the
Yeah,
refs wouldn't let him, but just like, come on, do it for the show. I just thought that was funny. I don't know if you
yeah,
saw that.
yeah. No, that's always one of my bucket lists is to get in a goalie fight. So no, I love seeing that stuff. It's awesome.
You gotta wait a few more years though, because college
Yeah,
hockey definitely won't let you doing that.
yeah.
So, and before Merrimack played in the BCHL, what was that league like? And I guess what made you want to play that in that junior league? And how did it help prepare you for college hockey?
Yeah, I love my time in the BCHL. For one, you get to live in one of the most beautiful areas in Canada, in my opinion. So that was great every day. And I think just the mindset in the league, it's a little more laid back than the USHL in a lot of areas like travel and just how much time you're really spending at the rink. And I think it's a great league to really get to know the guys outside the locker room as well. So yeah, no, I love my time in the BC. You get to play a lot of hockey games, which is great. And I think it's a really good developmental league for players that want to play in the NCAA.
Yeah, a lot of good players have played there too that are currently in Hockey East. It seems like it's like a breeding. It's kind of like the AHL for Hockey East, because it seems like every guy, every roster you look at, there's like at least three or four players that played in the BCHL.
Yeah, it's a lot of guys too, especially a lot of East Coast guys that happen to be committed to hockey schools. It's a good league for players that want to maybe need another year after prep school or before college. So it's a great feeder league for just guys that need maybe an extra year or two before college.
Yeah. Was it hard being away from home for the first time? Because that's obviously a long ways away from Michigan.
Yeah, it wasn't my first year. Senior year of high school was the first year I actually moved away from home, and that was a little bit of a challenge at first. Um, but after a while, like you kind of just get used to it. Eventually, I always knew that I wanted to play juniors, and I was going to have to move home eventually. Um, so I think with just that mindset, it made it a little bit easier for me personally. But yeah, you gotta just embrace the opportunity. And yeah, pretty much it.
Now, what made you want to go to Merrimack? Talk about that process and versus other schools you might have looked at. What made Merrimack stand out to you?
I think just what made Merrimack stick out to me was probably just the opportunity. Just opportunity to play games as a freshman right away, especially in Hockey East. Even in college hockey in general, to play as a freshman, it's super hard. So with an opportunity like that, you obviously have to take it. And then I had a previous friendship with one of the coaches here, Dan Jewell, the current goalie coach. I knew him through minor hockey and junior hockey as well. So I think that connection kind of helped. And then after my visit here, I just love, like we've talked about a little bit today already, but just the community here. Everybody seems to be wearing Merrimack colors. Loves the hockey team. Loves Merrimack Merrimack Athletics, and is just super excited that the school's finally getting some limelight that it deserves.
Yeah.
And I think those are the three main reasons why I chose Merrimack.
And obviously, what was like the biggest adjustment to make as a freshman? Because if I'm not mistaken, it was that COVID year, so it's sort of odd without fans and sort of an inconsistent schedule as well.
Yeah, we've kind of joked about it with a couple of the other guys and that are going to be seniors now too. Is like how crazy it was for
Hmm.
us as freshmen. And I kind of looked at it like last year was really my first freshman year of college, just because of how crazy the circumstances were for that freshman year. So yeah, I kind of looked at it as opportunity. Like everybody was in the same boat, and you just had to make the most out of every opportunity you get.
Now, just another question I want to ask you is sort of like playing in Hockey East. What's that like as a goalie? Because you face some of the best players in college hockey.
Yeah, no, hockey is probably top to bottom one of the most competitive leagues, if not the most competitive league in college hockey. Like any given night, especially second half of the year there. I think every weekend there was at least one team that upset or swept another team that they shouldn't have. So that's always exciting to see. And I think both last 2 years, both last weekends of the year, the standings are fluctuating 5, 6 spots. Everybody's moving up and down, and I think it's just exciting that you get to play against those great players every single night. And any given night, any team can beat anybody. So I think it's awesome.
Now, I want to ask you some final questions before we end this interview. One is, what's your favorite road arena to play in, and which student section has the best chirps? I feel like as a goalie, you have the best way to evaluate that.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but I don't know. There's a lot of nice buildings in our league. I think Lowell really sticks out to me as one of the nicer buildings. They always seem to get a pretty good attendance too. UNH, I really like playing in their arena, especially it's not too far away from us too, so we get some home fans as well. But I would say the best student section, obviously Maine's up there.
Oh
They
yeah,
they
everyone
like to
says Maine's the best from what
yeah
I for people I've talked to.
yeah. I think it's just the way their building's shaped. Their student section is kind of like right on top of you as a goalie, so you can definitely hear the chirps coming. So yeah, I would probably have to say Maine's probably. I mean, every building's fun. BU gets going there too. But yeah, I think it just creates more energy and more buzz,
Yeah.
just more fun of the game than like really getting in your head in any sense like that.
Yeah, I remember I think it was Brar that scored that OT winner at BU, and I just thought the celebration was great, and like all the BU fans very upset after you guys won that game.
Yeah, no, that was awesome. I think it was a buzzer beater one too. So yeah, that was awesome.
So yeah, for sure. And obviously Merrimack has some really good fans. You guys sell out that building pretty much every night. That must be one of the best atmospheres just because it's such a small building. So it just feels big every time you play there.
Yeah, I would definitely say it's between us and Maine for the loudest building.
Yeah.
They may have us in attendance wise, but I think just with like our low ceilings, same thing. Our stands are right on top of the rink too. So yeah, definitely one of the loudest places to play in the league for sure.
Now there might be some younger listeners listening to this podcast. So what advice would you give them on what it takes to make it to college hockey?
Um, just love the game, honestly. If you don't love it, you're not going to succeed in anything. Just pretty much just come to the rink every day with a smile on your face, get better, enjoy the grind, embrace it. And yeah, pretty much everybody's timeline's completely different too. Don't look at what other people are doing. Just worry about your own game, and if you're getting better every day, then that's all that really matters.
Do you have any shout outs you want to give to any of your teammates, former teammates, family members, friends? Feel free to do that now.
No, I'll just shout out my parents. Thanks, love you guys.
Well, thank you so much, Zach, for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate your time. It means a lot to myself, and I wish you nothing but the best for next season. And hopefully, I'll catch you at some games at some point. I like staying behind the net anyway. So,
Awesome, thank you. Appreciate it.